You see the thumbnail. I don't want to waste any of your time. I'm going to be talking about some sleepers, not all the sleepers, not every sleeper, maybe not just sleeper, but I'm talking about some sleepers that I have when it comes to the 2024 Combine. But before I get into that video, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. If it's your first time here, your first time tuning in, thank you. Don't forget to hit that like button. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. If you are a New York Giants fan, the way that I'm a New York Giants fan, what are you waiting for? Go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Now let's get into this list. Now I'm not going to talk about any sleeper quarterbacks. I don't think there are any sleeper quarterbacks. I would love to say the kid Bradley from Alabama. I don't even think he's in the Combine. I would like to say Joe Milton, Spencer Rattler. These guys are not sleepers. Not sleepers. And you know what? Let me be honest. On this list, there's going to be some guys that might not fall into the category as a sleeper. A lot of people run through the college season. They know a lot about these players here. And I'll be lying. I'll be lying if I said that everybody on here is a sleeper like you've never heard the name before. But just some people that are a little bit lower on the list as far as notable. And without further ado, let's get into it. First off, let me talk about these wide receivers that I think are sleepers. Now, the first name on this list is going to be Brendan Rice. I know. Brendan, he's not a sleeper, Dad. He's the son of Jerry Rice, but listen to me. What did he do? How many yards did he have? What round is he going in? What day is he going in? Those are not clear questions for everybody, or there's no clear answers for everybody. But for me, I think Brendan Rice has a chance to make himself a lot more money in the Combine. 40-yard, route running, catching, testing, interviewing. I think Brendan Rice has a chance to make himself a little bit more money. Right now, I can see him going, day 3. That's why I see Brendan Rice. I think a lot of these wide receivers are going to get pushed a little bit. And a guy like Brendan Rice most likely is a day 3 guy. But we'll see what happens with that. Ricky Piercy from Florida. Again, I know Dad's just not a sleeper. To me, he's not as well known as the first tier guys, your Adunze, your Neighbors, your Harrisons. He's not in the second tier with Thomas, Coleman, Worthy, Leggett. He's not in that tier either. The third tier, you got guys like Polk, McMillan, Corley. He's not in that list. He might be creeping up into that list. I'm curious to see how he tests. I'm curious to see how he runs. I think he's a solid wide receiver option. But for me, he's one of those sleepers. I'm curious to see how he runs and how he tests in the Combine. And then, of course, for me, got to have an Alabama guy on there, Germaine Burton. Germaine Burton, like Ricky Piercy, around that same range. We got a speedy guy in Burton. Might end up being one of those guys that ends up being a better pro than a college player. Not saying that he had a bad college career, but he could be a lot better, moving forward once he develops, once he gets, some NFL wide receiver coaching. But that's going to be a short list, just 3 guys when it comes to the wide receivers. Moving on to the running back, an even shorter list because a lot of these running backs are well known. Even some of the guys that I think could go a little bit later still got known. Guy like Braylon Allen, still a known name. Audric Estime, still a known name from Notre Dame. Those guys, I want to dig a little bit deeper than that. So a guy that's known but can be a sleeper because I think he has the whole bag when it comes to a running back is Dillon Johnson. I mentioned him in my other video when I was just talking about prospects and later round guys that you can keep an eye out on. Dillon Johnson from Washington is one of those guys. I think he should test pretty well. The problem is I'm trying to remember what exactly his injury is and if he's going to actually participate in the on-field activities. Not really sure. Jalen Wright, another guy, not sure. I don't believe he's going to be participating in the on the field activities. I have to check that. I try to see if I can do a Google search on Jalen Wright. I know he's coming back off of an injury as well. I'm not sure if he's been training or if he's ready to go, but that's another guy that intrigues me as far as being a sleeper. And if these guys are healthy and able to perform, I think they can try to make us a little bit of money. Next, we're going to talk about the tight ends. Tight ends, I got 2 names on this list as well. 2 tight ends, 2 sleepers, in my opinion. First guy is going to be a guy that I mentioned often, and that's Dalen Hawker out of Colorado State. He's one of these guys. Ended up being at the Shrine Bowl instead of the Senior Bowl. I think he got snubbed, but there's some other tight ends you put ahead of him. But I like Dalen Hawker definitely in day 3. Yeah, if he's around in the fifth round, the guy that you would definitely pick up around the 5th round. I think that's a good spot for him. Also from Penn State, Theo Johnson. I'm curious to see how he runs. I'm curious to see how he runs in the 40. Another one of those guys gives you the full bag when it comes to the tight end position. Good size, great size actually. Theo Johnson is a guy that if he runs well, you might see him make himself a little bit of money. Early day 3 type guy if he performs pretty well. I think he's moving up a little bit on the list now too, but we'll see what happens with that. So moving along, and again, please hit that like and subscribe button. Also, if I've already went past a position and you have a guy that you would call a sleeper, go ahead and put that in the comments down below. Let me know what you guys thinking. So let's move into the offensive line. I have 4 names on this list. As far as sleepers go. I've been researching offensive linemen every year, and there's still one guy on here from Texas, right tackle Christian Jones. Christian Jones. What intrigued me about him is I was watching the Senior Bowl practices, and I'm not sure if it was Daniel Jeremiah or Bucky Brooks, but somebody, or Charles Davis, somebody mentioned that this kid has a soccer background. And when I think about offensive linemen, and then I think about soccer, that's music to my ears. You want your tackles to have good feet, and if you're telling me that Christian Jones has a soccer background, then I'm going to look a little bit further into that. 6'6", 320 pounds, pretty good feet. Curious to see how he moves. And who cares about the 40 when it comes to offensive lineman? I understand that, and that's true. But I'm just curious to see. He seems to be a little bit athletic, so I'm curious to see what he does and how he performs. Now I'm going to talk about 2 centers. 2 centers on this list. One's going to be Bo Limmer from Arkansas, and the other one is Cedric Van Pran. Cedric Van Pran sounds familiar to a lot of people. He actually probably would have been a higher pick last year than this year if he would have came out. But Cedric Van Pran is an interior offensive lineman, can absolutely play center, can absolutely play guard. Bo Limmer is a center, again, like I said, from Arkansas. Both of these guys are good sleeper offensive linemen for that. Van Pran can possibly even sneak in. Maybe he can sneak in a day 2, but Van Pran literally dropped. Last year, he was probably going to be a 2nd-round pick. This year, we're looking at day 3. But Van Pran, Bo Limmer, definitely 2 guys that I'm looking at. And then another guy, not a sleeper at all, just curious because I've been talking about him a lot, and that's Jordan Morgan. I'm curious to see what Jordan Morgan can do, how he tests. Didn't have the best Senior Bowl week, so I'm curious to see if he can bounce back from that and do some things. And Cedric Van Pran, I would absolutely grab him if he's around in the 5th round. Guys like Zach Zinner won't be participating in the combine. Another guy, Drake Nugent. When it comes to offensive linemen, it's deep. Pause. Defensive line. One of the sleepers I have is Keith Randolph Jr. from Illinois. Obviously, his partner in that destruction of a defensive line that they have in Illinois. Jazon Newton won't be participating, but Keith Randolph, I'm curious to see how he tests. Guy that can possibly give you some 3 technique. I'm curious to see what he runs. Ruke or Row. Again, not much of a sleeper now. Everybody pretty much knows that name now. If you've been following, curious to see how he tests. Leonard Taylor out of Miami, another guy that could possibly be a 3 technique. Dealt with injuries in Miami, especially this season. Curious to see if he participates. I couldn't see a list. I would love to see a full list of participants. That would be fantastic to see. But yeah, Leonard Taylor is another guy from Miami, D tackle. And then my new sleeper, a guy that I just found, is Logan Lee from Iowa. Logan Lee from Iowa is very, very intriguing to me. Like, very intriguing. I'm curious to see how he tests. He's a defensive tackle, gives you that 3 technique. But when you want one of those guys with that endless motor, and you guys, whether it's social media, whether it's in these videos, I need a guy with a very, very high motor. Never quit, Energizer Bunny. That's going to be Logan Lee. Yeah, I'm very hyped to see what Logan Lee will be able to do. Interior linebacker, 2 names. Keep it real simple. Junior Colson out of Michigan. Curious to see how he tests. And then a Tyron Hopper from Mizzou. Curious to see how he runs. Very light. That guy's a little bit on the lighter side. Curious to see how he runs. Only got 2 interior linebackers. I'm going to wrap this up really quickly with the edge and then a cornerback. And these guys, late day 3 for the edge, and that's going to be the guy from Washington, Zion. Again, I apologize. Tupuola Feti. That's a guy that I'm looking at from Washington. Curious to see how he tests. I think he's one of those guys that could be a late round still to add some depth, to your team. Definitely think he's going to be a better pro than a college player, but we'll see what happens. And then the last guy on my list, going to round it off with a cornerback, a guy that I drafted in the mock draft as one of these later cornerbacks, and that's Jarvis Drumley from Louisville. I'm curious to see how Jarvis does in the drills. I think he has the speed, definitely has the size. Hopefully he has the hips, but it's just another guy that I want to see do something when it comes, to the combine. But that's going to be the video. I want to thank everybody for vibing with me. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And from one Giants fan to another, this is Big Dash Knows, Big Blue Nation. Let's go.